Hi, so my philosopher is Leibniz, and my partner is Brianna, so she'll be doing the second part of this. So we basically focus on Leibniz's philosophy of life. So one main point he brings up when he's talking about his philosophy of life is the monad. So here a quote says from his book, "The monad of which we speak here is nothing else than a simple substance, which goes to make up composites. By simple, we mean without part." So a monad is something that has no parts, but is therefore invisible. So according to Leibniz, a monad can begin through creation and end through annihilation. So since Leibniz believes things are created for a reason and believes things cannot be altered, he believes that monads cannot be altered or changed because there is no possibility of transposition within it. So Leibniz brings up this idea of that things cannot be changed. This watchmaker idea that everything was created for a reason and it's going to stay that way forever. So you basically just have to live with it. So he incorporates this idea within the idea of monads. So although they cannot be altered, all monads still have qualities in order to exist. Every monad must be different because there aren't two things in nature that are exactly the same. So in his Discourse of Metaphysics, Leibniz talks about a lot of ideas about God and religion and this idea of how God created everything for a reason and for a desirable way. So one of the quotes from the book says, "Concerning the divine perfection and that God does everything in the most desirable way." Another quote in this book says, "God produces different substances according to the different views which he has of the world, and by intervention of God, the appropriate nature of each substance brings it about that what happens to one corresponds to happens to all the others without. However, they're acting upon one another directly." So what that basically means is that everything happens to everyone and that you cannot intervene with what happens because God created it this way and you have no way of changing this, which is the idea he brought up when he was talking about the monads. So most of Leibniz's views on life are religious. He believes God made everything in a desirable way. All the events that God created are normal and orderly. So similar to the idea of the monad, he believes that everything God created is not subject to change. He believes that God is the only explanation for particular events and substantial forms are not. So basically you cannot question why things happen because all the answers are God. He says that these substantial forms are created according to the different views that God has on the world. So, however, these substantial forms do not affect one another. He additionally says that God prefers spirit over substantial forms because these spirits express God. So obviously from this you can tell that Leibniz was very religious and most of his philosophy was based on his religion. So Leibniz believed in having a happy life, being happy and peaceful. So what he defined as a happy life is, happy life consists in a soul which is completely content and peaceful. And in order to achieve the happy life, you have to follow the point that you can't change anything because God created it that way. So he says there are three main points in achieving happiness. His first point says that reason must be used as much as possible to differentiate from the good and evil, true from false, and to decide what should be done and what should not be done. Additionally, we should practice what reason has taught us in order to achieve virtue. Lastly, we must know that what happens is out of your power because everything is preset. So it's basically like you can't stress things because everything's done. So there's nothing you can really do about it. And therefore Leibniz believes we can only be content with whatever happiness, and whatever you cannot obtain is not a true good. So don't worry about that because like whatever you cannot get, don't worry about it because it's probably not meant to be. So yeah, those are my points on Leibniz, and now Brianna.
Leibniz is most known for his theory of the existing world is the best of all possible worlds, which is also known as philosophical optimism. He believed that there are various possible worlds instead of one giant possible world. He said that not all possibles were composable, meaning that if you were to put certain possibles together, some may not be able to coexist. He also believed that God chooses the most perfect set of things so that the end result would be the best of all possible worlds and we would all live in a perfect world. He also believed in theodicy, which is the answer to why God permits evil. He believes that a world with evil is better than a world without, and that everything is predetermined by a watchmaker. He believes that God planned it all and everything is by destiny. So, for example, if someone dies tomorrow, it was predetermined from their birth that they were going to die tomorrow. He believes in destiny, not fate. Destiny is what happens when you take responsibility for your life. It's what you're meant to do. And fate is something you cannot change. It's what happens when you do not take responsibility for your life. And lastly, he is also one of the two people who invented calculus in the mid-17th century. The other person was Isaac Newton. The two of them thought of different fundamental concepts, and it caused a big problem at the time because it had to be determined which one determined and developed which concept and what to do from there. Leibniz, along with Descartes, developed Mathesis Universalis, which is a book along with a hypothetical science modeled on math, which became the foundation for reasoning in all the sciences. That's all. Thanks.